At our family reunion, they gave me the worst room next to the trash. They had no idea. I own the entire hotel, but it always ends the same way. Me on the outside, watching them pretend we're one happy family. Every summer, my family plans a big trip to Bond. This year, the destination was the Arbor Hills Resort and Spa, a gorgeous mountainside hotel with panoramic views, spa treatments, a wine cellar, and private cottages. He'd built it from the ground up, and apparently, he believed I was the only one who could carry on his legacy. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, but what none of them knew was that this year, I owned the place. Please don't make this difficult. I'm already coordinating everything. 6 months earlier, after the sudden death of my godfather, who had always been more of a father to me than my own, I received something I never expected: full ownership of the Arbor Hills property. When my mother sent the annual group message about the family trip, she wrote, "Rooms will be assigned based on availability and need." My sister Amanda replied instantly, asking for the villa suite with the private balcony. Of course. She always got the best of everything and made sure I got whatever was left. I wanted to see how they'd treat me without knowing who I was now. I didn't say a word. I just smiled and texted back. My mom, dad, aunt, uncle, and cousins all turned toward her as she laughed loudly and waved her key in the air. Not yet. Let's keep it just between us. Amanda's already taken the best cottage, and your aunt and uncle have the garden suite. You'll be in, let me check, room 9B. Treat me like any guest. It was a small unit near the service corridor, originally meant for interns or overflow bookings during the holiday rush. No windows, no view. I'm in. Let me know what room I get. I wasn't here to flex. I was here to watch. The walls were thin, and I could hear the hum of the laundry machines next door. A single twin bed with stiff sheets. A flickering light in the bathroom. No view. No warmth. Just cold tile and the faint smell of bleach. To finally understand how deep this went, the way my family always pushed me aside like I was disposable. When I arrived at the hotel lobby that Friday afternoon, I wore sunglasses and a neutral outfit, trying to blend in. My sister Amanda was already there, greeting the staff like royalty. "The Violet Villa is perfect, Mom," she shouted. "It's like a dream." No one even noticed I'd arrived until the hotel manager, Leah, someone I had personally hired, walked over and greeted me quietly. "You know Amanda's covering most of the wine." "Miss Harper," she said in a low voice, "would you like me to inform them of?" Inside, I had written everything they'd ever said to me that made me feel small. Every dinner conversation where Amanda was praised for simply existing while I was ignored. The main dining area was stunning. Candlelit tables, ambient jazz music, and a massive stone fireplace. No one defended me, as usual. I shook my head. She gave a slight bow, understood. He walked right past Amanda and the others, stopping in front of me. Mom turned around just then. Her smile faded the second she saw me. "I hope the arugula pear salad meets your standards. We prepared it just the way you like." The resort lights shimmered behind me as I walked toward the overlook. "Oh, you came," she said, almost disappointed. "Well, let's see what's left." I knew that room. "You're putting her in 9B?" Leah asked cautiously. "It's fine." My mother cut her off. "Harper doesn't mind. She's always been low maintenance." Amanda snorted, flipping her hair. "Honestly, she's lucky we let her come." I forced a smile. Room 9B sounds cozy. My godfather didn't leave this place to me out of pity. He left it to me because he believed I could make something better. I could feel Leah looking at me apologetically, but I nodded to let her know it was okay. The hotel has more 5-star reviews in 6 months than it did in 2 years. The room was even worse than I remembered, but I didn't care. I sat down on the bed, opened my suitcase, and pulled out the leather-bound notebook I kept with me, the one my godfather had given me years ago. This trip would be different. That evening, we gathered at the hotel's restaurant for the welcome dinner. Naturally, Amanda was at the head of the table, sitting next to my parents, telling stories about how her job in real estate was basically recession-proof. I found my seat at the far corner, practically in the shadows, right next to the swinging kitchen door. "Try not to order anything expensive," my dad muttered as I sat down. "I'll stick to a salad," I replied quietly. "That's our frugal Harper," Amanda laughed. "Always pinching pennies. Some people call it budgeting," I said calmly. "Some call it being cheap," she shot back, sipping her wine. My aunt chuckled under her breath. Just then, the chef Marcus, a man I hired personally after tasting his food in a tiny bistro in Oregon, came out of the kitchen. "Miss Harper," he said with a knowing smile. The table went quiet. "You know the chef?" Amanda asked. "Oh," I said vaguely. "We've worked together before." Later that night, I stepped outside into the cool mountain air. Leah joined me a few minutes later, holding a cup of herbal tea. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. "They're exactly the same," I said. "Nothing's changed, but I need to see it through." She nodded. "You already have. The staff loves you." I looked out over the hills, the stars glinting above the pines. "Tomorrow," I whispered, "let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes." The next morning, the resort was buzzing with the usual overindulgence. The breakfast buffet overflowed with imported cheeses, Belgian waffles, and smoked salmon flown in from God knows where. My family filled their plates like they were starving aristocrats. I picked up a small bowl of Greek yogurt and fruit, sat quietly at the edge of the table, and sipped my coffee. "That's all you're eating?" my mother asked, scanning my plate like a disappointed nutritionist. "Honestly, you look sick. No wonder you look so frail. You're too thin, Harper." "I'm healthy, Mom," I replied evenly. "I just prefer to start the daylight." "I mean, what's yogurt and berries? Like $5, Amanda chimed in from across the table. ID spent the past 6 months upgrading the kitchen to include local farm produce and hiring 2 dietitians to create balanced menus. But sure, cheap. Guided tour of the grounds. She's not being healthy. She's being cheap. Everyone laughed. I didn't. After breakfast, the schedule my mom and Amanda had crafted began like a royal itinerary. 10 o'clock A.M., 11:30 a.m. Spa appointments. 1 p.m. Lunch at the cliffside patio. Guess who wasn't included in half of it? Leah pulled me aside just before the spa visit. "Your premium massage slot was canceled this morning by your mother. She said you wouldn't need anything fancy." I double-checked. "She told reception you'd be fine with the basic 15-minute foot rub." "I'm really sorry," she said under her breath. "Of course she did," I said, barely surprised. "Don't worry. I'm not here for massages. You asked me to gather anything labeled under his personal correspondence. My godfather had loved this room. It was here he'd built his empire," he once told me. I watched as Amanda and her husband Matt floated down the hallway in fluffy white robes, giggling like they'd just discovered royalty in their bloodline. I didn't flinch. I simply walked the other direction, straight into my office. My office. It still felt surreal. The ink had faded slightly, but her tone was unmistakable. "She's not like the rest of us. She doesn't have what it takes to succeed in this family. It's confusing her. You're only making it worse." When I unlocked the private door marked staff only, the smell of cedarwood and leather hit me like a memory. A good business is a lot like a good story, Harper. It's all about knowing who your characters are and when to change the plot. I sat down at the massive oak desk, where a familiar face awaited me, Leah, holding a box of old documents. "These were in the storage vault," she said softly. She placed the box in front of me. I hesitated, then slowly opened it. Inside were photographs, letters, business journals, and something else. A yellowed envelope. My name on it. I opened it. It was a letter from my mother to my godfather, dated 14 years ago. "Please stop filling Harper's head with unrealistic ideas." There were more. Letters over years. Every one of them was a carefully written plea to my godfather to stop encouraging me. That I wasn't leadership material. That Amanda deserved to carry the family legacy, not me. And then I found a letter from him. It was never sent. "Harper has more vision and empathy than any of you are willing to admit. One day, you'll regret not seeing it. I only hope she doesn't learn to doubt herself the way you taught her to. Isabel, I love you, but it breaks my heart to see you undermine your daughter so ruthlessly." I didn't realize I was crying until Leah placed a tissue in my hand. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. They'd submitted fake valuation reports, fraudulent offers. They were going to fix it up and give him a break in his final years. "No," I whispered, "but I'm starting to understand." I spent another hour going through documents, piecing together what I already suspected. It wasn't just emotional cruelty. A few years ago, Amanda and my father had tried to convince my godfather to sell them the hotel at a fraction of its worth. He didn't fall for it. Instead, he created the trust and signed the hotel over to me, bypassing the rest of the family entirely. And now, here we were. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My cousin Grace poked her head in, a crack in the smug certainty they all shared about who I was. "Since when do you coordinate anything? You didn't even RSVP until last week." This area's for staff only," she said, eyeing the room curiously. "What are you doing in here?" Before I could answer, Leah stepped forward. "Miss Harper was just reviewing some event coordination notes. She's helping us with logistics." The main banquet room was decked in gold linen, centerpieces of fresh orchids, and a live string quartet. Grace raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? Maybe I'm more involved than you think," I said evenly, meeting her gaze. For a second, I saw it. That flicker of doubt. "Well, whatever," she muttered, leaving. When the door closed, I sat back in the leather chair, heart pounding. I knew one thing now with certainty. A real moneymaker. Maybe something like this place. They weren't going to stay in the dark much longer. That night was the formal dinner, the highlight of every family vacation. I wore a simple black silk dress I'd designed myself, watching, listening. As I walked in, Amanda caught sight of me and waved dramatically. "Finally," she said, "we were going to eat without you." I took the seat they generously assigned me, again, tucked away behind a pillar, hidden from view. As always, Rob, Amanda's husband, was already tipsy, bragging about his recent crypto profits. "We're this close to buying a resort," he told the table, plotting a staff mutiny, or just lost again. I keep telling Amanda, "You gotta think big." She always has. My mom beamed. Unlike some people, the string quartet played softly. I stayed quiet until, halfway through the first course, Grace blurted out, "Hey Harper, why were you in the hotel's private office earlier? You looked weirdly comfortable in there." Forks paused in midair. "You were in the restricted area," my dad asked, frowning. "Why looking into some things?" I said, sipping water. "Like what?" Amanda challenged. The table burst into forced laughter, until a voice interrupted. Leah, walking over with a bottle of champagne. "Miss Harper, Your family's bottle of De La Motte Rose, as requested. My mother blinked. We didn't order champagne. It's on the house, I said calmly, accepting the glass, courtesy of the owner. The table froze. Forks hovered. Glasses stopped mid-sip. Even Amanda, who usually had something snide to say locked and loaded, blinked as if I'd just spoken in code. Courtesy of the owner, my dad echoed. What does that mean? I swirled the champagne slowly in my glass and gave a gentle smile. It means this dinner's on me. Silence. Not the awkward kind, the deafening kind. The kind that sucks all the noise out of a room like a vacuum. Okay, what are you playing at? Amanda finally snapped. This isn't funny. I'm not joking, I said calmly. You know the owner. That's how you got us this discount trip. Wait, Rob leaned forward, glass in hand. You mean like, not exactly, I replied, placing my glass on the table. I am the owner. The words dropped like bricks. At first, they laughed a short, nervous burst, like they were trying to shake off what they'd heard. Harper, Amanda scoffed. You're not even on the lease of your apartment. You're not running a 5-star hotel. Creative. Stuff is cute, but let's be real. You design logos, for God's sake, Mom added. That's when Leah returned, not just with more champagne, but with the hotel's general manager. Mr. Keller, would you prefer to serve the lemon tart or the saffron creme brulee for dessert? Thank you. Just checking in, Miss Harper, he said respectfully. Let's go with the creme brulee, I answered. Mr. Keller nodded. As you wish. I'll alert the chef. The air thickened. Wait, Rob blurted, his face reddening. That guy answers to you. Yes, I said simply. And Leah does. So does the head of housekeeping, the maintenance director, the events coordinator. No way. Amanda's voice cracked. This is some kind of prank. It's not, I said. 6 months ago, I inherited this hotel from my godfather. I've been managing it since. They were stunned. Say anything. Why let us think you were some broke little tag-along? Even my mother, who normally had an emergency insult chambered, just sat there, speechless, is asking me to stay in a room next to the mop closet, while Amanda gets a penthouse suite in a hotel that legally belongs to me. Amanda's voice shook slightly. If you've been running this place, why didn't you? Belittling everyone else at the table, because I wanted to see what you'd do, I said, looking each one in the eye. I wanted to see how far you'd go if you thought I was beneath you, because he saw something in me you never did. Let's say this is all true. How did this happen? Your godfather had other options, better ones. That's twisted, Rob muttered. No, what's twisted? I shot back. You never acted like the owner, Amanda protested. What does an owner act like? Amanda, arrogant, demanding. She didn't answer. You wanted this hotel like it was a trophy. I wanted it because it mattered. Then my dad, who'd been unusually quiet, leaned forward. A broke graphic designer running a resort. Sounds like a joke. Okay, let's say we believe you. He chose me, I said. My father kept blinking. Like if he stared long enough, he'd see a different reality. I continued. But why keep it from us? My mother asked, genuinely confused. Why not announce it when we arrived? Because I needed to know if anything had changed. I replied, if after all these years, maybe someone in this family had grown enough to treat me with a shred of respect. Spoiler alert, no one did. They looked ashamed. Not all of them, but some. Guest satisfaction is at a record high. We were just nominated for 2 luxury travel awards. Our net profit has tripled in 6 months. Grace avoided my eyes. Amanda looked like she was trying to force tears. You all talk about legacy, inheritance, entitlement. but not once have I heard any of you talk about stewardship, about responsibility. She doesn't just want success, she wants meaning. That's why I'm leaving her what I've built. Not because she's family, because she's the right choice. Okay, Rob scoffed. Let's say you do run this place. How's that going? Legal counsel will be present. I suggest you be there. I didn't respond. Instead, Leah reappeared, as if on cue, with a folder. I handed it across the table. What's this? Rob frowned. Performance reports. Since I took over, bookings have gone up 18%. Rob flipped through the pages. Silence again. You really did all this? My dad asked. With a team, and a vision, and values. Then I turned to Amanda. You wanted a legacy. You wanted to be the one Grandpa believed in. Here's what he actually believed. I pulled out a single sheet of paper from my purse. It was a copy of his handwritten note, the one I found in the office. I read it aloud. Harper has more empathy and insight than anyone I've mentored. Amanda stared at me as if I'd slapped her. He wrote that, she whispered. Double quotes, yes. And there's more. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we'll be holding a meeting in the main conference room. What's going to happen? My father asked. The rest of the truth, I said. You'll hear it all. As I stood up to leave, Grace reached for her glass, but didn't drink. Harper, she said quietly, you were always quieter than us. But I never knew. I didn't see it. No one did. I replied. But that didn't mean it wasn't real. I left them there, stunned, shaken, staring into their untouched creme brulee. That night, as I stood on the balcony of my private suite, my suite, I looked out at the sea and whispered, tomorrow, everything changes. The next morning arrived with a strange stillness. For once, no passive-aggressive breakfast chatter. No whispered insults across the table. Just tension, heavy and silent, as my family picked at croissants and fruit like they were waiting for a court sentence. At exactly 10 a.m., the main conference room doors opened. Mr. Keller stood at the entrance, dressed in a crisp navy suit, flanked by our family's longtime legal advisor, Mr. Granger. A man whose presence always meant something serious was about to go down. If everyone could please find a seat, Mr. Keller announced. Miss Harper, we're ready when you are. I nodded, stepped to the front of the room, and faced my entire family, the same people who, just 2 days ago, gave me the worst room in my own hotel. Thank you all for coming. I began. I know yesterday's dinner left you with questions. This meeting is to answer them. I gestured to Mr. Granger, who placed a thick folder on the table and opened it slowly. Jonathan Wyatt transferred full ownership of the Miramar Resort to his goddaughter, Harper Rowe, through an irrevocable trust. This transfer was executed legally and with full mental clarity. Harper has been the sole owner of this property since 6 months before his passing. Granger began. My mother gasped audibly. But he never said anything. That was intentional. I interrupt. Ted, that might explain why he chose Harper. He didn't want this to turn into a power grab. He wanted someone who actually cared about his vision, who understood what this place meant to him. Grace sat motionless, as if bracing for an earthquake, all trying to convince him I wasn't worthy, that I was flaky, irresponsible, that the hotel would crumble in my hands. Amanda asked, frowning. Amanda looked dazed. Rob leaned back with arms crossed, visibly seething. You couldn't stand the idea that maybe someone else had a future here, someone who didn't fit into your narrow definition of success. Murdoch Granger continued. Inside were printed email chains, proposals he and Rob had made behind the scenes to buy out the hotel from Jonathan for pennies on the dollar. In addition to the hotel, Mr. Wyatt left behind several letters and statements documenting his rationale. He also left behind copies of certain communications, He slid 3 sealed envelopes down the table, one each to my mother, my father, and Amanda. "What is this? You're twisting the story. We were just negotiating." "That's business." "Your own words," I replied. "Letters you wrote to Jonathan, emails, conversations." Amanda's face turned ghostly white. "I was trying to protect the family," she blurted. "You don't know how much pressure." "No," I cut in. "You were trying to protect yourself." My father flipped through the envelope. "These are private," he said, his voice tight. "They were never private from Jonathan," Granger replied. "He saw through the deception. That's why he didn't sell to either of you. This is all one-sided." Rob barked. "Then let me show you what real business looks like," I said. I turned on the projector and played a short presentation. Financial graphs, guest satisfaction ratings, upcoming expansion plans, our award nominations, our new partnerships with local vendors. When I stayed behind after dinner last night, I saw the scrapbook, the handwritten notes, all in your handwriting. "That's 6 months of progress," I said, voice steady. "I didn't just inherit a hotel. I built on it. I honored his legacy. The one who stayed up late cataloging his old receipts, redesigning his brochures, planning the remodel he never got to finish." Silence followed, until my mother finally broke it. "You never told us, never gave us a chance." "He left me a chance to bring this family back together, honestly, without pretense." "I gave you 30 years of chances," I said quietly. "Every time you dismissed my career, laughed at my passion, ignored my voice. That was a choice." He asked it be read publicly, today, by Harper. Her face crumbled. His familiar handwriting stared back at me, tight and deliberate. My hands trembled slightly as I read aloud. I thought he'd pick me," she whispered. "The resentment, the hierarchy, the absence of kindness. That's why I chose Harper, because she saw people, not roles, not leverage. She built bridges where others burned them. And I believe she can build something stronger than what I leave behind. A family that acts like one. Inclusion, empathy, responsibility. You can be part of it, if you want to be." I thought I was the one who deserved it. "You were his daughter," I said gently. "But I was the one who listened. If you let me, I want to start again." I saw it. Grace said suddenly, her voice soft. She turned to the others. "We weren't just wrong. We were cruel. I let it happen." Amanda stood slowly, shaking her head. "So what now?" she said bitterly. "You've embarrassed us, exposed us. Are you kicking us out?" "No," I said, "because I'm not like you." I took a deep breath. "What I want is reconciliation. Jonathan didn't just leave me a business." Granger stepped forward with one final envelope. "This is Mr. Wyatt's final letter," he said. I opened it. "To my family, I loved each of you in my own way, but I could no longer ignore the patterns. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, not even Amanda's. So, I said finally, I'm offering you all something. Not a free pass, not ownership, but a seat at the table." "What does that mean?" Rob asked, confused. "It means we start over. I'll create a family advisory board, a symbolic council to represent the values Jonathan cared about." Amanda scoffed. "You want us to earn our place? That's rich." "No," I said calmly. "I want you to grow into it, if you can." My mother stood up and came toward me slowly. "I failed you," she said softly, her voice cracking. "Not just as a mother, but as a woman who let her insecurities dictate how she treated her daughter." I looked into her eyes, and for the first time in my life, I saw something real. Not pride, not competition, just remorse and hope. "Okay," I said, "let's start." After the conference room cleared, the weight of everything settled in my chest like fog heavy. Slow, lingering. My mother was still standing beside me. She looked smaller now, like a version of herself stripped of pride and bravado. "He always said you reminded him of himself," she whispered. "The way you look at the world, the way you challenge it." I swallowed, emotions rising like a tide. "Then why did you spend so much of my life trying to make me forget that?" I asked. Softly but firmly, she sighed, the kind that sounded like years of guilt being let out in one breath. "Because I was jealous," she said honestly. "Because I was afraid. I wanted his approval so badly, and I saw him give it to you, effortlessly. I didn't know what I'd expected. Excuses, denial. But hearing that truth, raw and unfiltered, made something in me unclench. You punished me for being loved," I said. "I know," she replied, tears pooling in her eyes. "And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make that right if you'll let me." I nodded, barely able to speak. Then my father stepped forward. "I spent my life trying to be seen," he said, staring at the floor, softening. "But all I really did was look past you. I'm sorry, Harper. I truly am." Even Amanda, who had spent her entire adult life acting like I was invisible, with silent arms folded, but expression. "I don't know if I can be part of this family the way you want it," she said slowly. "But I can try to be less hostile. That's all I ask," I said. But one person remained apart. Rob. He hadn't moved from his chair, arms tight across his chest, his jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. "So let me get this straight," he finally muttered. "We just move on. Pretend none of this happened. Pretend we didn't get lied to." "You weren't lied to," I corrected. "You just didn't ask the right questions. You set us up," he snapped, standing. "Put yourself in the smallest room, acted like some martyr. That wasn't noble, it was manipulation." The air in the room thickened again. "It was a test," I admitted. "But not of you, of me. I needed to know if I could be around this family and still stay true to myself." Rob scoffed, shaking his head. "Well, congrats. You passed. And we all failed." He turned to leave. "Take all the time you need," I said, calmly. "The door is open when you're ready." When he left, something lifted, as if we could all finally breathe. Miguel approached me quietly. "There's still one more thing," he said. "Mr. Granger mentioned a second box of your grandfather's belongings, more personal documents, journals, notes." That box wasn't just about the hotel. It was about him, Jonathan Wyatt, the man who had seen something in me when no one else did. He handed me a small brass key. "It's in storage room to be." I held the key, feeling its weight. Later that evening, I went there alone. Inside the dimly lit room, covered in plastic sheets and dust, was a heavy cedar box. I opened it slowly. Inside, leather-bound journals, yellowed sketches, receipts, even blueprints, and then a sealed envelope. "I left you this hotel because I knew you'd protect it, not just the property, but its soul. If they accept it, you succeeded. If they don't, you still will, because your worth never depended on their acceptance. It never has. But I also left you something more valuable, the chance to break a cycle, to lead with empathy instead of pride, to be the bridge this family desperately needs, not from sadness, but from a kind of peace I'd never known. For Harper, open only when you're ready." My fingers trembled as I tore it open. If you're reading this, you've already faced the hardest part, the truth. They may never fully understand why I chose you. That's okay. You don't owe them proof. You owe them the chance to heal. With love, Jonathan Wyatt. I closed the letter, leaned back against the old shelves, and wept. The next morning, I returned to the My Suite with a renewed sense of purpose. I found my mother already, waiting by the balcony. "You're really running this place, aren't you?" she said with a quiet awe. "I am," I smiled, "and I plan to do more than just run it. I want to make it better. She nodded, almost as if asking permission. Can I be part of that? Not just the business. Your life, no backhanded comments. Yes, I whispered. That's all I ever wanted. Later, I gathered everyone again in the lounge. Amanda, Grace, my parents, even a few cousins who had finally heard the rumors and arrived curious. We're not going back to the way things were, I began, but we are going forward. Together. They nodded. For once, no smugness, just willingness. And Rob, he didn't show up that morning, or the one after that, but I saw him later that week, standing outside the hotel with a suitcase in hand and a look I couldn't quite read. When I opened the door, he didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, I don't want a steak, he said. I want a job. I want to help. 1 year later, the sea looked the same, but everything else had changed. I stood on the balcony of the owner's suite, sipping coffee as the morning sun spilled golden light across the courtyard of Hotel Miramar. From up here, I could see the entire property, and in it, traces of every decision I'd made, every wound we'd tried to heal, every bridge we'd started to build. I still lived here, still ran it, but it wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was ours, not because of ownership papers, but because it had become the heart of something new. The family council, it wasn't legal or formal. Just a monthly meeting where family members, yes, including Rob, gathered to talk. Not about profits or bookings, but about values, legacy, and who we were becoming. After that infamous reunion, we formed something called the Wyatt Council. My mother showed up to every single one. So did Lucia. Sometimes they even brought cookies. At our last meeting, Lucia, the once untouchable golden child, shared a scholarship application she did personally. Helped a local girl write. She reminds me of Harper, she said, smiling at me. Creative, quiet, but fierce where it counts. We all clapped. Even Amanda, my mother, transformed. If you told me a year ago that my mother and I would one day be laughing over lunch like old friends, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we were, weekly lunches, just the two of us. She never tried to compete anymore. Instead, she asked about my agency, my designs, my team. And when I shared a client win, a Fortune 500 company signing with us, she got misty-eyed. I wasted so much time trying to clip your wings, she said once, but watching you fly is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Rob's redemption. Rob eventually came back, not with excuses, but with ideas. He didn't ask for shares. He asked for purpose. I gave him a role in expansion, new locations, new partnerships. To my surprise, he was brilliant at it. For once, his ambition wasn't about being the best in the room. It was about building something meaningful. One evening, after we closed a deal together, he turned to me. You didn't owe me another chance, he said, but thanks for giving it anyway. I nodded. We all need one, I replied, and sometimes we need to earn it. But impact. Room 108. I transformed room 108, the little cell next to the laundry, into a quiet museum. The walls display photographs of the hotel's humble beginnings, my grandfather's early blueprints, and one framed letter behind glass to the one who understood that true legacy is not about inheritance. Guests often pause at that letter. Some leave notes, some just stare, but all of them feel it, the soul of the place. The real inheritance. Every day I walk through this hotel, I feel my grandfather's presence, not in the bricks or financial statements, but in the people who now walk its halls. The local high school student working the front desk on scholarship, the single mom attending one of our career workshops hosted in the ballroom, the elderly man who tears up every time he sees the new accessibility ramp he helped fund. This hotel is more than mine. It's ours, not because we share blood, but because we finally chose to share truth. Legacy lived at the entrance of Hotel Miramar. We placed a new sign beneath the carved wooden arch. It reads, "We don't build walls. We build bridges. We don't offer rooms. We offer homes." Some guests don't notice it. Others take photos. But I see it every day. And every time. I remember the girl who once sat alone in room 108, wondering if her voice would ever be heard. She's not wondering anymore, because she built a place where no one gets left out. Not in rooms, not in conversations, not in love. The final words, this wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about reclaiming dignity, choosing truth over silence, and proving that you don't have to tear others down to rise. It's about a granddaughter, a daughter, a sister, and a woman who finally stopped asking for a seat at the table and built her own. Harper Wyatt, owner, Hotel Miramar, daughter of a complicated family, legacy of a great man, builder of something new. If this story moved you, help others feel seen too, are meant to be told.